So if Steve doesn't mind, we'll get to your example.
And I'll probably stay longer than I'm supposed to because it sounds like
If it gets,
not that I didn't think it was going to be fun.
if it gets dull, I'll put on a skirt.
Excuses at the booth like, oh, I ran over, so.
I can dance on the table if it gets too dull. Okay.
Is there any way to just bring the panel up? If not, we can work with this.
Yeah, this, because of the proportions, that's as big as I can make it.
Okay.
There's a full screen.
Is there a full screen?
I can live with it. If you guys can see this. I subscribe to the Edgar Allan Poe School of Storytelling, okay? And I chose one of the shortest pieces that I've done over the years as an example to walk you through a single story. And this is a piece that I wrote Andrew, and I'll let Mike play around for another second before I jump in. Basically, Edgar Allan Poe's approach to storytelling was that narrative had to serve atmosphere, and that the thrust of a piece of short fiction was to create an emotional mood and to build it to a payoff for the reader, some sort of emotional payoff for the reader. I was perfect. That's just, and if you can walk through, let's make sure it goes to the next panel before we start, and then I'll read you a ghost story. Okay, great. Let's go back to start. So I'm going to tell you a ghost story. The best way to go would be put all the lights up, but we won't do that. You can see the panels clearly enough. So I will do what Eddie Campbell advises never to do, which is read you a comic story as we show you the panels, so bear with me. And everybody can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
I never liked Sunday. Mikey, come to breakfast, son. I like my mother and father, and I liked eating breakfast. And I like the funnies, but I never liked Sunday. I hate Sunday. Come along, Michael. Aw, do I have to? Sunday was church. Now, you go right to sleep, young man. We'll be home after Mass. Have a good nap. We'll say a prayer for you. I was too young to go to church. I couldn't sit still that long. So I had to stay home, alone. Father said I was too young to have the run of the house to myself. So I had to stay in the drawer and sleep. I curled up, and Father shut the drawer. I curled up, and Father shut the drawer, and I listened to them leave. Then I cried myself asleep, and I waited for them to come home and let me out. They never came home. They never came home. They never will come home. Never, never, ever. I don't know why Mother and Father never came to let me out. All I know is the dark. And I know I hate Sunday and sleep. And I know that if anyone ever comes along and opens this drawer, I'm coming out. That's it. So now I'm going to walk you through. I mean, what I just read to you is a 4-page comic story. And one of the things that Joe Kubert, who was the founder of the Joe Kubert School, where I went to school and became my mentor very quickly, is Joe's whole thing was, whatever the window of opportunity you have to tell a story, you tell that story as clearly and directly as you possibly can. And part of what Joe instilled in us was, whatever visual devices you were going to use had to serve the story. You're not there to show off your stuff. That's going to pull the reader out of the story. And everything about how you design the page, including where you're placing your lettering, where you're putting the captions and word balloons, everything should be about leading the reader's eye exactly where you want it to go. And where you want it to go is to serve the story, in all cases. If I do anything to pull you out of the story, I have failed in some way. Even if it pulls you out momentarily, I have blown it. Even if it's a minor blow, and you'll be right back. So there's a number of ways to approach visual storytelling, and I'm going to walk you through just some of the devices I used in this simple little 4-page story. So when you've got this compressed narrative that you're presenting, Economy is everything, all right? I have 4 images to show you this kid. And I want you to like this kid in 4 images. And so what I did is I choose shorthand. As Bill and everyone on this panel can attest, shorthand is what cartooning is all about. How can I quickly package a concept or an idea or a character so that with a single glance you're bringing a certain association to it? So I pattern Mikey after Dennis the Menace. I make sure he's not actionable, that I won't be sued by Hank Ketchum or the Syndicate, but I pattern him after Dennis the Menace and little toe-headed kid, okay? So let's give a little test too. I only have 2 panels to show you the father. Only 2 panels. First panel, he is the stern silhouette, the patriarch at the doorway, telling the son what to do. Second panel is the only shot you're going to ever get of the father. Who is the most beloved president of the United States? Abe Lincoln. We don't even know why he's beloved anymore because none of us were around then. So I patterned him after Abraham Lincoln because the dad, in a way, is sort of should be the villain of this piece. He's doing something that would now be considered child abuse. He's putting his son in a drawer and shutting the drawer. By the way, this story is based on a true story. Story hooks are really important. This was one of those jobs, and we've all had that kind of job, where I got a call from an editor, somebody had blown a deadline, they had a 4-page slot. And, Steve, do you have a story? We'd like a ghost story. And you always say yes. Unless you got other work and you can't take it. I didn't have a 4-page ghost story in my head at the time. And a friend of mine who's a contractor, Rick Veach's younger brother, Peter Veach, is a contractor. Pete and I were close at the time, and during one of our sit-downs over a couple bottles of Molson, Pete told me he was working with this old guy whose name was Mike, hence Michael, Mikey. They were working on a house, and Pete and the other young guys on the job realized that this old guy, Mike, kept refusing to work in certain spaces of the house. Closets, hallways. He would always defer, get the young guys to do that. And Pete finally called him on it during a lunch break, and Mike said, I'm claustrophobic. When I was a kid, my parents would go to Mass. They'd be gone for up to 4 hours. This was New England back in, early 1900s. So they had a dresser that they would make a bed in, and they'd put him in the drawer and shut the drawer. Because there was no child care. Everyone in the community was in church of one denomination or another. This is how people used to deal with younger children who, couldn't make it through a 3 to 4 hour Mass. And understandably, Michael was traumatized by this. And my first thought was, God, what if something had happened to them, Yeah. So that's what this whole story hinged on, was that little anecdote. So the other character that you only get 2 looks at, Mikey's mom. So I set up the tiny shot of his mother in the first panel, and with his mom, the important thing wasn't the visual device, it was the dialogue. Come to breakfast, son, have a good nap, we're saying a prayer for you. It was anything the mother said was going to be beneficial, caring, nurturing, okay? And I've only got 4 pages to work with. Now, you identify how many characters on this double-page spread? Anybody?
3.
3? Okay, we can live with that. Let's go to the next
And the
page.
house.
And the house. And the drawer. Thank you, Bill. Okay, when you're a storyteller, and anyone on this panel can attest, your props are not just props. If they're essential to your story, they are characters, okay? That set of dresser drawers is another character. And there are certain devices that we can use as cartoonists when we're telling a story in the comics form that would not translate to other media, okay? One of them is the use of diagrammatical spaces, and especially the current generation that's grown up with comics by Chris Ware. I mean, oh my God, Chris Ware's works are often diagrams. Many of you, I flew here on an airplane. We are so used to diagrams as part of our social instructional work, and those are all comics. So I wanted to hold off showing you the dresser drawer. I wanted to save that payoff for introducing that character on page 3. I don't want you to see the set of drawers when it's brand new in the home. So I work with a diagonal cross-section of the dresser, using the drawer to set up Eisner style, the insertion of the title, Sleeper, and to set up the illusion of Mike inside the drawer. That should not make sense to most readers. I have never had anyone confused when I presented this story. Either they are reading it as a comic or presented in this form. We accept drawer. I show you Mikey's head peeking out of the drawer, Mikey in the drawer, and then I can use that frame for an inset panel. Now another aspect of storytelling is it's like playing a card game, okay? If you're playing certain card games, the way you lay your cards down make a huge difference. If I'm playing cards with my compatriots at the table, and let's say we're playing poker, and I've got a full boat, and I don't know what they've got, and I've got 7 cards, and I may lay it down so that I'm hiding what I've got in my hand. And as a storyteller, sometimes we're hiding what we've got in our hands. Or I may want to trick them and think, no, if I can bluff these guys out and keep upping the pot, so I lay down my best cards to make them think I might have 4 of a kind. Okay? That applies to storytelling. This story will not work without that insert panel. If you're questioning on page 3 why the parents aren't home, I've taken you out of the story. But if I show you what happened to the parents, you're going to keep going for the ride, okay? And that's what I'm doing here. I'm playing an ace. And a lot of storytellers do this. I'll give you just one example. 2 films by the same filmmakers. The Coen brothers. How many of you have seen Blood Simple? Their first film? If you've never seen Blood Simple, go watch Blood Simple. An entire film hinges on only the audience, the viewer, by the end of the movie knows what just happened. There is no character in Blood Simple who at the end who has survived who will ever figure out what just happened to them. Same filmmakers and storytelling, storytellers, the Coen brothers, Miller's Crossing. Very similar structure, but Gabriel Byrne plays a character. He's the guy who's figured out what's going on. So, same device, but here this story would cease to function. I thumbnailed it a number of ways. Without that panel, the story didn't work. Let's go to the next page. Oh, there's another factor. Who's the other character in the story? Or what's the other character in the story? Say that again?
The car?
No, not the car. Good call, though.
The house.
Not the house. Good call, though.
The tree?
No, that's Mikey. He's changed, but it's still Mikey. Sundays. We're getting closer. Darkness. This is a story about claustrophobia. Everything hinges on putting you in that drawer with this kid. So darkness is as much a character as that set of drawers or any human beings in the story. So with this cross-section, I deliberately set it up to play up the darkness of being inside the dresser drawer. And this becomes one of my devices as a storyteller as well. Let's go to the next page, please, Mike. Okay, this is page 3. I didn't want to show you the dresser drawers until time had passed, okay? My same friend, Peter Veach, was working in the house. He says, Bissett, calls me on the phone, Bissett. He knew I was doing the story. He dug it because it came from an incident he told me about. I'm working in the house. There's the most creepy set of dresser drawers we've ever dealt with up in the attic. So I went over with my sketchbook, did some sketches. That was the exact dresser. Cobwebs and everything. All I added was the rat off to the left. That wasn't there when I was there. I am now introducing another grammatical device that shouldn't work but does, of showing you the dresser, panel 1. Panel 2 is the drawer. Panel 3, blackness. And readers accept they're inside with panel 3. This would work in a film, unlike
Going through the keyhole.
exactly going in and going. You could do this in cinema in a way that you couldn't pull off what I had done on page 2. Now here I'm using it. Let's stay on this page. If you can get rid of there we go. Here I'm using a device that shouldn't work in comics, but would work great in film. If you've ever walked into a darkened theater, you get there late, you're going to meet your friends in the movie theater, your eyes take a little while to adjust. So what I did is I staged this whole reveal of Mikey as if your eyes were adjusting to the darkness, because I want to hold off showing you what he's become. And darkness returns as a character at that point. and I make it very overt as a writer here. Now if you look, I didn't spend time with it on the other pages for time, but if you look at how I staggered the captions, everything is about leading your eye down the page. I used to hate working in Marvel because I didn't get to place the captions in balloons, right? The editors would do that, and they would have put a caption there, a caption there, and it would have pulled your eye all over the place. Everything was about stringing your eye down the page. I always approach my pages so only one way it can be read. There's 3 ways people read comics. I did conventions for 25 years, and I'd love to sit in the area where people go to sit with their comics, you know, the little rest area, and just watch people reading their comics. There's 3 ways to read comics. Text-oriented people will turn the comic, and they're reading the captions, and then they'll read the art. They'll glance, and then they'll get into the text. Visually oriented people read the images, then you can see their eyes go up, and then they read the captions. And very linear people, panel 1, panel 2, they drink it all in, and they don't cheat and look ahead. So I have to design my page so that all 3 reading types will still look in the direction I need them to go. Got it? So very simple, straightforward approach here. There's other examples I could show you where it's more complex. Marvel was terrible with that because the artists rarely got to place. Am I wrong? I mean, almost every job I did in Marvel, I didn't get to place the balloon. Okay, let's go to the next page. Now, darkness is the suffocating entity on this last page, so I drew it on blackboard. Okay? Most readers aren't even conscious of things like that, and it's better if you're not conscious of it. So if we go back to page 3, more traditional approach to the page, white page, and I'm drawing my panel borders. Also, panel borders are important. I use every tool in the kit. So I used a ruler on panel 2, I hand ruled panel 3, and then went with a rougher panel border on the 4th panel, because I just want to make those borders feel a little less stable, okay? Very subtle, but it's still a tool in my kit. Let's go back to page 4. Now, when I got to this page, all the borders are drawn with whiteout pen, no ruler. Because you're so close to Mikey that you're uncomfortable. Now, this story makes no sense, okay? It's a ghost story. All good ghost stories are irrational. Horror as a genre is an irrational genre. So is romance, so is comedy. Any genre fueled by emotion is an irrational genre. So my sleight of hand in this story is between page 2 and 3. Somebody would have gone to their house. Somebody would have, even if Mikey died in that drawer before he went down the house, somebody would have gone, what is that smell, right? All I got to do is, like Edgar Allan Poe with his stories, is sleight of hand long enough that you go for the ride. And if I get the chill out of you at the end, it worked. Almost any ghost story, horror story, romance, comedy you backtrack on, narratively, very few of them make linear or logical sense. Horror is one of those irrational genres. So on this page, it was all about textures. And now your eyes have adjusted. I'm coming out would work. So that's like one story I've walked you through. And any one of us here could present a sequence from our work or a story we've done and break it down in a similar fashion. Cool. That's what I got.
That's great.